What's up, my fellow scruffy looking nerf herders, and welcome to the Carbonite Chat. Today I'm going to be talking about the Mortis Arc from Clone Wars. Now, if you haven't seen the Mortis Arc, please go and watch that. I'm definitely going to just spoil everything that happens, and I think it's one of the best arcs in all of Clone Wars, especially, at least for me personally. And if you're trying to follow in order, you can watch this out of order because technically they get kind of brought to another dimension, and so you can watch it first before watching everything else, and it won't mess with the storyline. It really won't. It's just kind of a piece in and of itself. So if you haven't seen it, please go watch it beforehand. It's on Netflix, season 3, episode 15, 16, and 17. It's incredible in my mind. It does so many great things, but I want to discuss it because the last episode of Rebels, Ezra was given kind of a stone tablet, and on the stone tablet it had 3 kind of hands, and those hands mimic exactly what the picture that we saw from the trailer for Rebels, the mid-season, of the Mortis, the father, the son, and the daughter. This kind of hints very largely that this is what he's going to find when he tries to take that back to the Jedi Temple. So because that's going to be probably something that's happening either this coming Monday or possibly the next week, but fairly shortly, I wanted to kind of retouch on it and to bring back some memory of those who had seen it before or those who haven't seen it at all. And especially I just wanted to rewatch it again myself because I enjoy it so much. So let's go ahead and get into it. The first episode is season 3, episode 15. And as I said, they're getting a call, and they can't meet up with the people that they're supposed to meet up. I believe they're supposed to be meeting up with Rex, but they both go to this location of this beacon, but no one's there. And then next thing they know, they kind of wake up out of nowhere and they've crashed onto this planet. They don't know what this planet is. At this time, this figure comes up that it reveals herself to be the daughter, and she comes up and she begins to lead them to go meet the father. In the middle of that, a rock kind of crashes down and it splits up Obi-Wan and Ahsoka from the daughter and Anakin, as Anakin kind of tries to push the daughter forward, and she's like, you can't touch me, that's not allowed. And he's like, okay. And so they end up splitting up, and they have to go separate directions. The daughter says, I'm worried for you because that was definitely my brother's attempt to try to hurt you. And so then as Anakin goes to try to find the father, Obi-Wan and Ahsoka go back to where the ship is. And at this point is when the son reveals himself. Now, the son is one of my favorite characters in Clone Wars for such a short period of time. It's unbelievable. It's voice acted by Sam Witwer, who is the character that plays Starkiller. In the animated series, he voices Darth Maul and Emperor Palpatine. He's just an incredible voice actor. I'm a huge fan of his, and he plays the son absolutely brilliantly. And so the son shows up and he says, you didn't listen to my sister. She told you to stay and you didn't stay. And Obi-Wan and them end up bringing out the lightsabers to try to kind of attack him, and he just easily just closes them, shuts them down like it's nothing. And Obi-Wan's like, you're a Sith, and he just kind of laughs, and he's like, I'm much more than that. And he ends up shape-shifting and then flying away. At this point, the storm starts to happen. It was this beautiful light planet, and then a storm starts to come down and everything begins to get dark, and Obi-Wan and Ahsoka end up get into a cave to protect themselves. During this time, Anakin has found the father, and he's trying to ask the father some questions. And the father basically is like, I will answer these questions later, but it's nighttime now. You go ahead and be my guest, and we'll talk about everything tomorrow. During this, Obi-Wan has a conversation with a vision of Qui-Gon, and Qui-Gon begins to, warn Obi-Wan of what can end up happening during all this, that this is a dangerous place for Anakin. And then Ahsoka sees another vision of herself grown up, and begins to warn her of the troubles to come with Anakin. And of course, Ahsoka doesn't want to believe it, and she just kind of dismisses it. And then Anakin, asleep, begins to be like caressed by his mother, and she begins to try to, talk to him. And he says, how sorry he is he let her die, that the whole time that he was killing everyone, that while he was killing the Tusken Raiders, that he was, all he felt was vengeance and hatred and anger. And then it ends up revealing itself to be the Son, and it's the Son trying to manipulate Anakin and kind of fuel his dark side, much as we know later on Palpatine does with him. Then he ends up going up back to the Father, and the Father's kind of meditating, and Anakin just pulls a lightsaber on him and gets it right up to his face, and he's like, you're a Sith. And the Father's like, I'm not a Sith. And he just, again, another time, they just close the lightsaber down like it's nothing. And he says, I'm much more than Sith. I'm not Jedi or Sith. You have such, small-minded thoughts on the Force. We are what's called Force wielders. We hardly any of us exist anymore. Anakin's like, I've never heard of you from the Jedi. And he says, most people don't know about us. It's been so long that we've been kind of gone. And this is when the Father reveals the point of him drawing Anakin to come. The Father is getting old, and his job is to protect or control his son and his daughter. His daughter is the version of the light side of the Force, or selflessness, and the son is the version of the dark side of the Force, or selfishness. And the Father kind of controls them and keeps balance. But he feels himself getting old and weak, and something can happen. And so, hearing that the Chosen One was born, he brings Anakin with the hope that he will end up taking the position, and Anakin will then be controlling the son and daughter. So during this time, he brings Anakin down to this kind of arena type area and says, it's time for you to be tested. And once you're tested, afterwards you can decide, and if you want to go, you can go. And then the figures of the son and daughter end up flying in. The daughter has Obi-Wan, and the son has Ahsoka. And Anakin's like, let them go. And he goes, I won't let them go. I've told my children to kill them. And he says, you've got to decide which one you're going to try and save. And Anakin's like, I won't play your game. And he's like, you don't have a choice. And so as Obi-Wan's yelling and saying, save Ahsoka, don't save me, they're too strong for us. And Anakin ends up using the Force and lifts them both up. And he's holding the son and the daughter up and gets them to drop Obi-Wan and Ahsoka. And they begin to try to run off. And at one time, the daughter tries to attack Obi-Wan, and he throws the daughter across the arena. And then the same with the son. And then he picks them both up and brings them to him and makes them basically kneel before him. And this is where the Father just begins to, clap and says, you are the chosen one. No one else would be able to control my son and daughter. Now, this is just visually an incredible scene, and it's absolutely amazing. And it kind of answers a debate so many people have had whether or not Anakin was the chosen one or Luke ended up actually being the chosen one. But it's just such a well done scene. But with this all happening, and looking at some of the discussions we've had with Ezra and him going there, wondering whether or not this is going to try to pull him into more of a middle range, more of a balance, a gray. We've had the Bendu, and now if you're talking about Mortis, that was all about being balanced in the Force. And so could that be possibly a way that Ezra ends up surviving, and Yoda not saying, no other Jedis are there? That's a possibility. I'm not the biggest fan of that, but that's just, I'm trying to think of what could be a connection between what happens on Mortis and why Ezra is going to be spending time there. I'm sure Dave Filoni will come up with an incredible storyline or idea for it. I trust him completely, but I don't know. I'm just, interested. Please comment down below if you can think of any things that would have to do with that. But that's only episode 1 of the arc. Episode 2, Anakin says, I'm leaving. The Father's like, just know that this will, haunt you for the rest of your life, if you decide to leave. And he's like, you told me I could go. And the Father's like, well, I can't keep you. It has to be your choice. So Anakin and Obi-Wan and Ahsoka begin to try to leave. And as they're trying to leave, the son reveals himself. Anakin is worn out from trying to control those two. And as they're preparing to fly away, he falls asleep on the ship. And the son reveals himself to him, and he says, you've got to come with me. Now that you've been here, I've seen my capabilities. I've seen the powers that I have. And Anakin's like, I will never join you. I will never go to the dark side. I will not join the Sith. And the son's like, the Sith, I'll destroy the Sith. We will destroy the Sith together. We'll destroy the Sith and the Jedi. And you and I together will conquer all those who are evil and bring peace to the galaxy. And Anakin's just like, no, I'm not joining you. And then he wakes up. And at that point, he walks to the front of the ship to go meet Obi-Wan. But the son appears onto the ship and takes Ahsoka and flies away. Next, you see Ahsoka kind of chained up in this, kind of dungeon type area. This weird little creature that's kind of talking to her and questioning her about whether or not her master actually, cared for her, or whether or not, she actually trusts her master. And as they're trying to, discuss it, and she's defending what Anakin's done and how good of a master Anakin is, the little creature lets her free and then's kind of walking her, and she starts to kind of stumble. And, then the creature just grabs and bites onto her arm. And she's like, what did you do? And she collapses down onto the ground. And then the creature kind of rises up and it reveals that it's the sun. And that's when you see that it's actually Ahsoka has, starts to get these like darkness over her face. And then her eyes change, and that she's been turned to the dark side through some form of poison or something in the bite of the sun. Then the father begins to get onto the son for what he has done. He says that you've been trying to fall too far to the dark side, and that's not right. You can't allow this to happen, or else I'm going to have to do something. And the son's like, what will you do? And then the son begins to get enraged, and he shoots force lightning and ends up throwing the father down this huge flight of stairs and trying to kill him. And then Obi-Wan is down there on the ground, and the daughter is right behind him, so he ends up flying away. But because this has happened, Obi-Wan tells the daughter that there's too much of an issue happening, that someone needs to control the son, and the father can't do it. So she takes him down to this secret location that the son and the daughter are not allowed to go to. And on this altar, there's this sword that Obi-Wan's able to get. And getting the sword, he will have the ability to control the son. So Anakin's heading to go kind of rescue Ahsoka. During this point, he meets Ahsoka, but the dark Ahsoka, and she kind of questions whether or not he really ever cared for her. And he's like, what are you even talking about, Snips? And she says, he said that if you don't turn and join him, that he's going to kill me. And Anakin's like, I'll never let him. I'll stop him. And then she says, well, then that means you'll have to kill me. And then she begins to attack him. At this point, the son and the daughter are having a conversation, and the daughter's questioning him about what he did and, why he would do this. And he ends up saying that, I did what was right or what was wrong, depending on how you look at things. His father became very selfish, and he refused to die, and I needed to help speed that up. And through this, the daughter and the son begin to get into this fight, and they're using different force powers, and he's throwing lightning, and she's kind of using 2 minutes to catch it and throw it back. And through this, Obi-Wan sees that Anakin and Ahsoka are fighting, and so he heads down there to try to help them. In the middle of the daughter and son fighting, the father ends up waking up, and as he begins to wake up, he heads in there, and he ends up kind of force pushing the daughter and the son through the window and all the way down to where Obi-Wan and Anakin are fighting. Right prior to this, Obi-Wan revealed that to Anakin that he had the blade to protect, to control the son, and he said that it could possibly be used to stop Ahsoka and turn her for she's no longer a part of the dark side, because they're not going to kill her, and she's fueled by the dark side and rage and kind of attacking them. It's a dangerous situation because they don't want to hurt her, but they have to defend themselves. But how do they defend themselves and kind of not do anything to affect her, especially Anakin, whose technique and style is a Makashi and a Jimso, which is very much a parry and return style. So it's kind of odd for him to fight in that type of way. It fits perfect for Obi-Wan Kenobi, who's Surisu and it's all defensive. Technically speaking, he should have just been able to defend the entire time. But anyways, So as that happens, they're down there, and the son goes and kind of gets in the father's face, and the father's like, why have you let this happen? The son begins to use force lightning, and the father hasn't quite recovered, and so the father's basically down to his knees at the weakest point, and the son's like, you showed me the ability, my potential that I have. And Obi-Wan says, Anakin, now, and he goes to toss him the blade, and Ahsoka kind of jumps in the middle of it, grabs it, and hands it to the son, and the son's like, this all worked exactly as I had planned. And that's when he goes, thank you, and kind of touches Ahsoka, and she just dies. And that's when he goes and tries to stab the father, but the daughter goes and jumps in front of him, and he stabs the daughter. This just freaks out the son, because later on he says that she was actually the only one he ever truly loved, and so he ends up kind of going into a rage and flying off, and the father's there with the daughter slowly dying, and Anakin's begging him to do something to save Ahsoka, and he's like, nothing can be done, we can't do these things. And then the daughter kind of reaches her hand out as if like, no, let my life force bring her back. And that's when the father ends up kind of touching both heads and transferring the essence of the daughter over to Ahsoka to allow her to live. And this is when they're beginning to try to leave right after this. But that's another part of this kind of ordeal that opens up or begs the question of what this could have a meaning with Rebels. We still wonder about Ahsoka. I did a video before, but I deleted it, unfortunately, about, is one of the Lothwolves Ahsoka? A lot of people talked about it as well, so you've probably seen it. But because the daughter had the ability to shapeshift, and then her transferring her essence over to Ahsoka could give Ahsoka the abilities to be able to maybe not become a Force ghost, but to be able to maybe transfer her essence into a Lothwolf or something along those lines. And then you also have the wolves clearly saying Doom, which is Caleb's last name, which is Kanan's last name, his original name, Caleb Doom. And so the question is the huge wolf with the blue eyes, Kanan? I'm not sure, but I think that's, the first episode I kind of talked about the balance and stuff. And this one, it gives a hint to the shape-shifting and the possibility of the Lothwolf being one of those characters. And then going into the third episode of the series, of the arc, you end up seeing Anakin and Ahsoka. They're trying to leave, but the ship is kind of damaged because Anakin tried to chase after the son when he took took Ahsoka, and ended up crashing the ship. So she's trying to work on it, but Anakin decides he needs to go to the father to be able to get the father's kind of permission to leave, because if he doesn't do that, he's scared that the father won't be able to control the son, and at some point the son will be released onto the galaxy, because the father has this extra dimension that they've kind of created to control and hold in the son and the daughter, so that they're never released onto the galaxy, because they're far stronger than anyone else that we have in the entire galaxy. I mean, they end up, doing stuff to, the Jedi like it's nothing. Obi-Wan and Ahsoka have zero chance at all, and lightsabers don't do anything. They just shut it off. And so he talks to the father, and the father is, there's nothing that can be done. He basically ends up saying that there's a location that you need to go to, and you can answer the questions that you're, bothered with now, and decide for yourself, and then you can go. And he actually ends up going to a dark side well. And when he goes to this dark side well, of course, the son is there waiting for him. Just prior to this, he meets Qui-Gon, and he asks Qui-Gon, am I the chosen one? And, Qui-Gon doesn't quite really answer it. And so when he gets to the well, the son shows up. Anakin pulls out his lightsaber, and he's kind of like, I'm not going to join you. I'm not going to do anything. And the son goes, what if I can show you something that you would really like to see? And he's like, I don't have time for your tricks. And he says, I think you'll like this. And Anakin begins to kind of, put his head down, and he's, saying no. He's starting to see visions, and the visions begin to come in, and it's basically his future. it is his future, and he begins to see what he ends up doing, how many people he hurts, how he becomes Vader, how he joins the Emperor, and all the evil that they kind of put out across the galaxy. After this happens, Anakin's like, how do I stop this? And the son's like, come with me, join with me, and you and I will go and kill this Emperor who turns you this way. The future is never solid, like it's constantly changing, and we can change this. If me and you join together, we can destroy this Emperor, and then we can destroy the Sith and the Jedi, and we can rule. The same thing he had pitched prior to that, but now with Anakin seeing that he would basically kill all of his loved ones and those that he cares about, now he's willing to join alongside of it. Obi-Wan goes and meets the father. The father tells him that he's at the well, so Obi-Wan heads down there. When Obi-Wan gets there, Anakin quickly just kind of pushes his speeder bike off into the lava, and he says, you will have no idea what I have to do to prevent the Clone Wars from happening, but you're going to try to stop me, and I can't let you. And he's like, Anakin, what are you doing? He's like, I've seen that the Jedi are going to be what causes the downfall of the empire, or the downfall of the Republic. And so he begins to kind of fly off, and then the son comes down and speaks to Obi-Wan, and he says, he's mine now. I've taken over control of him. And he goes and flies off, and Obi-Wan quickly kind of calls to Ahsoka and says, quick, do something to mess up the ship so that they can't fly away, to give me time to get to the father to try to be able to control or stop this. And so they get there, and Ahsoka sneaks out. She gets something that prevents the ship from being able to fly away. And the son is talking to Anakin, and Anakin says, she did something to the ship. We can't fly. And the son says that my father has some control over this realm still. Let me go deal with him, and then I can get any ship we want to come here. And so the son flies off. And at that time, the father appears up behind him, and the father begins to, say, what did he show you? And Anakin, says, I saw my future. I saw how much I hurt people and all that stuff. And the father says, this isn't right. He should have never shown you this. You shouldn't be able to see your future in this way. It's not right. It destroys the laws of time. And he kind of takes the memory and mind wipes Anakin from that point. Anakin, of course, wakes back up, no longer remembering what happened, and the father says, that time is gone. You shouldn't have ever known your future, and so I removed it from you. And he says, but the son is coming. He's my son is coming, and we only have one chance to try to be able to stop him. He's becoming too powerful too quickly. And so the son ends up showing up, and the father begs him, please control yourself, like, we can stay here. This doesn't have to happen this way. And the son says, my destiny belongs beyond this place. You can't hold me here anymore. You're not strong enough. And the son, by weakening the father, has been able to grow stronger, and the father's not able to hold him back from going as far to the dark side. And so the father says, okay, fine, it has to be the way you want it. And so Anakin goes to attack, and then the son, growing so much stronger, ends up just ragdolling Anakin like he's absolutely nothing, and then doing the same with Ahsoka and Obi-Wan. And then the son has the blade that he used to kill the daughter earlier on his waist, and the father pulls it to him, and the son's like, what are you going to kill me, father? I know you won't kill your son. And the father goes, through me, you have power. And this is the only thing I can do to kind of prevent you from having too much power. And then the father ends up stabbing himself in the chest. And the son's like, no, what are you doing? Why would you do this? And he's like, if I die, you lose a lot of the power that you have. And that's the only thing I can do to protect the galaxy from what you would end up doing. And the son goes to grab the father, and in this, the father kind of gives a look at Anakin, and Anakin comes up and ends up stabbing the son in the back. And the son's like, you betrayed me. And he's like, I'm sorry, son, I never wanted to do this. And that's when the son collapses, and the father says, you are the chosen one. You did bring balance to the Force, and you brought balance to this place, and you ultimately bring balance to the galaxy. Ironically, it's brilliantly done, because he did bring balance, just like he ultimately brings balance to the entire galaxy, but there's so much chaos and so much death all around all of it. It's not what you would think. It's not like we saw in episode 1 where he's controlling them, and that's it. He just controls the dark side and the light, and you're like, oh, that's great, he brought balance. But no, he has to just kill everyone to be able to do that, which is exactly what he does. It's Dave Filoni's so brilliant. The stuff that he puts into his stories and the little, just deeper meanings and connections are just so brilliant. So that's essentially the arc of this story, and what happens with Mortis right after that. They end up flying away and leaving, and of course the father dies as well. So it just leaves me wondering what that can connect with Ezra and Kanan, and where that kind of goes overall. What does that part of the story do with Ezra? Could it be that Ezra begins to possibly see a future where he goes to the dark side, much like Anakin did, or is this too much of a mimicking? It probably is, but I'm not Dave Filoni. I don't have the brilliant ideas. So I wanted to bring this up. I know this is probably run a little bit long, so I'll try to close it off. I really just wanted to discuss and bring back up to memory the Mortis Arc, because I love it. I think it's great, and throw in some little ideas of what maybe it could mean for the Rebels episodes coming up, as it's very clearly this is what's going to be happening, if not this Monday, the next Monday. And so just wanted to start a discussion on that. And, have you seen it? Is it your favorite like it is mine? I know there's a lot of other really great arcs in Clone Wars. This one it was just like a beautiful hour-and-a-half long movie, and it was so well done, better than movies being done now by Star Wars. And I love it. I think it's brilliant. The voice acting, the ups and downs of the arcs of the characters. It's Dave Filoni doing what Dave Filoni does, but it's mainly meant to try to discuss and open up conversations about what can happen in the upcoming Rebels, as that second episode, or I guess second 2 episodes of the mid-season, as we're closing up to the finale and what may happen or be going on with all of this. I look forward to hearing your thoughts and discussing them all with you. I'll post some videos up here, as well as I have my link to my TeePublic page down below. And as always, thank you guys for watching, and never forget, you Nerf herders, I love you.